Hi, this is William Steele with All in VR. I'm all in VR. Are you? So today we're going to talk about something that not that many people are talking about, which surprises me to be honest, and that is the Pico 4 Enterprise. The Pico 4 Enterprise intrigues me because it's basically going to be the main competitor to the Quest Pro, at least if you want face and eye tracking in particular. I guess maybe if you're looking at less enterprise things, I think there's a whole lot more that it looks like will make the Pico 4 more of a compelling buy to a business than the Quest Pro, at least at the moment. Granted, the Pico 4 Enterprise, just like the Pico 4, is not going to be available immediately in the United States, and we don't know when it will be. So that leaves only the Quest Pro right now if you want to upgrade to something as your only choice. But one of the things that make the Pico 4 Enterprise compelling right off the bat is obviously its price. And that's going to be, I believe, €899, and so it'll probably translate into something less in US dollars. I'd imagine somewhere between $800 and $850, depending on what the exchange rate is between the dollar and the euro. I believe the dollar right now is stronger than the euro. Correct me if I'm wrong. I apologize. I'm an American, so I just assume my currency is stronger right now. But it hasn't always been. So anyway, not to get sidetracked, the Pico 4 Enterprise. So what do we get with it? Well, the main thing that makes a competitor to the Quest Pro is going to be the face and eye tracking. It's basically got the same things that the regular Pico 4 has, which is pancake optics, the 4K displays. I believe they're LCD. I don't think anybody's doing OLED yet, at least these new releases. But they're supposed to be very good displays, less screen door effects, no God rays because of the pancake lenses. You've got 256 gigabyte storage as default, where you could choose on the Pico 4 between, I believe, 128 and 256. They mentioned high color saturation, and I don't know, I guess it means the colors look good, great. And about 2 hours of battery life, which makes sense. Now, I don't know if they overclocked the Snapdragon 2 or anything like Quest has done, or Meta, whatever you want to call them. But about 2 hours of battery life. I imagine this with face and eye tracking enabled. I imagine if you maybe disable that, you'll get more hours, similar to what the Pico is. I think usually they're more like 2 to 3 hours, but it says 2+, so maybe it's similar. I'm not sure. And we've got obviously the face and eye tracking. That's going to be very similar to the Quest Pro, which has it, and at a considerable discount. I mean, you're going, let's just assume you're saying $14.99 versus $8.99 in euros. That's, what is that? That's going to be $600 cheaper, basically. That's a big deal, actually. And obviously hand tracking, which I don't really think they have. I think it's still in beta on the Picos, the hand tracking. Correct me if I'm wrong. At least on the Pico 4s, but they're working on that. There's 6 degree of freedom controllers. I don't think have cameras on board. I'm assuming it's going to be the same controllers the Pico 4 uses, which could be a good thing for many if you want to have more battery life in your controllers and not have to charge them every, 4 to 8 hours or 6 to 8 hours, whatever the estimate is right now. But you don't have those cameras on board, so you get much longer battery life, I imagine. But you probably have some things that open the door to better tracking with the cameras on board the controllers. Is that worth another $600? Not sure. Maybe to some people who are needing to do things in 3D space that might require their controllers to be occluded from the field of view of the headset, so coming around. And maybe there's something where you need to go all the way around and still have your controllers be tracked. If you're in a professional environment, I imagine that could be a possibility. So let's go on. Now, a big difference between the Quest Pro and the Pico 4 Pro. Again, the Pico 4 Pro is just adopting, I believe, pretty much it's the same headset as the Pico 4 with the addition of some sensors or cameras for face and eye tracking. So you do have the full facial interface, and I should be looking at this screen even though I have my computer screen right here. You have the full facial interface. Now, you still have the automatic Ipd tracking, and I think that is really cool. I mean, yeah, that you can adjust it manually with the slider on the Quest Pro. I mean, I guess some people I think might like that more. I kind of like the idea of automatic Ipd tracking, and one of the things that they mentioned in their presentation is that it's completely automatic. There's not even a setup. It will just, I imagine that the eye tracking system will automatically adjust the IPD to your eyes, and that is really cool. as long as it works well. You don't want it to be off. And hopefully there's a manual override if for some reason the eye tracking gets your IPD wrong. But having completely automatic IPD adjustment, I mean, that's actually pretty cool. Something that the Quest definitely does not have. Hygienic and detachable physical user interface mask. I think that's what PU is for. I could be wrong. But that is fine. I mean, that includes your whole view. And I guess that's one of the other differences between this and the Quest Pro. The Quest Pro keeps all that weight kind of like right on your forehead. It's balanced, but also just rests on your forehead. So you're not having your whole face have pressure on it, which is a little bit different than this. This is the traditional style of the Quest 2 and the previous generation Picos and the Pico 4, this full facial interface, which keeps you out of reality a little more, even though it's got the color pass-through. One thing I noticed when I was demoing the Quest Pro at Best Buy, the facial interface was actually extremely comfortable. I mean, just having that resting on your forehead actually was a lot more comfortable. It didn't seem prone to like any kind of headaches, and I did like having the ability to still feel very connected to the outside world, even when I'm in VR. There are times I think where I want a full facial interface. I think there'll be plenty of times, but I think there's also plenty of times, especially in a professional environment, where you don't want to be taken completely out of reality because of you're working, you're at a desk, maybe somebody walks in, maybe you just want to feel a little more connected at your office, or maybe for some people you don't. Maybe your office isn't that exciting. However, if you're getting to use VR in your office, I imagine that the environment hopefully would be kind of cool. Maybe for some it wouldn't be if they're trying to get you to collaborate in more of a remote way. I don't know. But I think it would be really cool if a business is trying to utilize VR in their operation somehow. I think would be really cool. I'm sure there'll be some pushback from older people who are more into the old school ways of doing business, but I think you're going to see this become more of the norm. And I think especially for people who aren't as into it with VR, I believe the kind of open interface and having that option by default will make more people feel comfortable going in and out of VR because they feel more connected with the real world. Because honestly, at least with the Quest Pro, the video feed, while it is three-dimensional, it's very grainy. It was very, very grainy. It wasn't that impressive. Maybe there's a way that they can use algorithms to get better resolution out of that. I know that this, I believe, is 16 megapixel camera in the Pico 4. I don't remember what it is in the Quest. We can look that up shortly in the Quest Pro, sorry. So I don't know what the difference in image quality is. What I do know is Quest Pro definitely feels very three-dimensional. It's very accurate. You can reach out and you get that sense of 3D, and you can touch, you can accurately touch something in front of you exactly where you intend to touch it. Whereas as far as I know, at least with the Pico 4 so far, people who tested it said that it's not a very 3D-like experience. It feels very flat. So it'll be interesting. I did not order a Pico 4, so I won't have a way to test it. Maybe at some point in the future I'll get one. Maybe I want to do some development. I am a software developer for VR and AR experiences, so maybe I want to get a Pico 4 so I can build some apps on it, because of, while there's not as many apps, when you're building for a highly utilized or a very popular product that doesn't have a lot of applications on it, that also can be very empowering, because of now you have a big audience and there's not as much to choose from. So that helps the audience have more applications, and it also makes your application more of a sellable product as long as it's half decent, because there's less in the marketplace. It's not going to be as obfuscated from everything or kind of diluted with everything else that's in the marketplace for VR. So let's go to the next part of this, which is, I think this is where Pico might have an edge. I don't know 100% sure, but what I can tell you is Meta has not really talked much about this kind of stuff. So this is saying, it says addressing the needs of businesses in XR, and that is to manage content and devices securely and customizing it without limits. So it's a global scale, local support. So let's kind of break all this down a little bit. So one of the things that they talked about was that let's say you're a company and you want to deploy this on a very large scale throughout your company. So you're going to need to manage those content and devices. And managing the content and devices can be very difficult. You have companies that have thousands of cell phones, for instance, or mobile devices that are deployed throughout the organization that people use. And you have like Samsung has what's the platform that Samsung uses? They have their own secure platform. I'm having a brain fart on what that is. It'll come back to me in a minute. But Samsung Knox. Samsung Knox. They have a whole ecosystem of security features and management features, usually built by third parties that can integrate at the hardware level with the security features and the management features. And it appears, at least from what Pico is saying, that this is more or less what they're going to do with their headsets, with the Pico 4 Pro. And that's actually very exciting. I think that an organization, especially with new technology, is going to be very nervous unless you have a clear way to manage devices and secure them, and obviously easily customize them. So I kind of see this similarly with what Samsung is doing with their Knox product at the enterprise level, and that is actually really cool. And I think that might actually help adoption and give them an edge over a lot of other companies who are kind of deploying this piecemeal. And for companies that are going to want to be on the cutting edge and maybe deploy this in a larger scale, or even maybe they're using it for immersive experiences on a large scale. Maybe some of these like virtual reality amusement parks would rather use something that's more easily manageable and secure instead of just having to kind of ad hoc have people manage devices in each store and kind of have tech savvy people in each store. That could also make it easier. I don't know what Meta is planning to do on this end. I haven't seen a lot. I'll have to do a little more research. I did quickly try to search for any information. What kind of tools are going to give people to manage the devices? I didn't see that much, but feel free to comment and chime in if I'm wrong or if you know something I don't. I wouldn't be surprised. I only did a quick look. So let's talk about what else we have here. So they're calling it the Enterprise OS 5 or the Pico OS 5 and an enterprise only app store. So this is actually kind of cool, both of these. So one of the things they mentioned is you can actually interact at the operating system level with the device, which I think is very cool. It seems like we're going to get a lot more control over all the hardware in the device. Whereas with the Quest 2 and Quest Pro, everything Meta related, they really lock things down. So until they release something that allows you to interact with, maybe you want to be able to have better hand tracking or you want a new feature, there's nothing you can do to really implement any new features. You're stuck with whatever Meta has given you in their API. And for me, that can be very frustrating. I've wanted to be able to access the cameras and maybe even display a different camera as a pass-through camera. I could have taken another camera, stuck it on there that was Wi-Fi enabled, and used that as my own pass-through, but I can't, only in a single application, I can't just replace the default camera for the pass-through. So there's no real way to go outside of their APIs, which for me as a developer is a little bit frustrating. So this sounds actually cool. I don't know if people do that with all Pico devices or whether it's just specifically in their enterprise OS. I'd be totally fine if they only give you that ability in the enterprise OS, if they let you interact more at the hardware level with the enterprise OS and potentially screw things up. How much flexibility we'll have there, I don't know, but it'll be interesting. Now, their enterprise-only app store, one of the things they talked about was you can have your own app store. So if you're a company, you can lock down specific apps. They can be your own apps. You can have an app store specifically for you. That's only for you. That's secured from other people from accessing it. So if you have custom applications or you only want certain applications visible, I think that's great. They're obviously, the syncing, I guess, is syncing between headsets maybe or something. I'm not quite sure. Or maybe syncing data, some kind of data. Exactly what data, they didn't really say. Streaming, again, I don't know what they mean by that. Like what is so they can stream stuff that's in their headset, maybe to outside parties, or maybe you can use your stream inside the headset and connect to a computer and get a live feed and send that into like a meeting or something, which has, so people both in and out of headsets can collaborate. That would be my guess. Again, I don't know. They didn't really explain that. And of course, a kiosk mode. We all know what a kiosk mode is. It's basically a locked down mode that kind of like resets itself every time. So every time somebody goes into an experience, they can't go outside of the experience. They can't mess around with settings or other applications. They only have access to what you give them access to, which is also actually fairly, at a business level, can be very useful. Very, very useful. So let's see. So now as part of the management part, these are the partners they're working with in terms of, I guess, having types of management systems. So they're not building the management system. I'm guessing they're providing some kind of API, kind of like Samsung Knox does. So with Samsung Knox, you can create your own phone management systems, and there are companies that make these mobile device management systems and sell them, and do pretty well doing it to manage thousands of devices. And so it looks like we've got some companies that we actually know very well, like VMware. Who else? Cortado, I'm familiar with. Not familiar with Radix. I don't know if that's related to Citrix, because their logo looks a little bit like the Citrix logo. And I don't know any of the others, but it sounds like this will also be very useful. It'll be interesting to see what they come out with and what the demand is for all of this. That's the bigger question. What is the demand going to be at the enterprise level? I'm very, very, very curious, but very excited if it picks up, because of even at the enterprise level, all this stuff picking up and becoming more viable and more highly demanded will be better for all of us. My only concern with Pico is a Chinese company, so maybe that's why they haven't broken into the American market so readily, because of all the red tape around getting the ability to sell in the US market, and especially with the enterprise part of it, it might even be longer before companies, at least American companies, feel comfortable deploying them. And even so, even if a global company deploys it, would they be allowed to deploy it in the US? Like if you're a bank, probably not, because banks have very stringent security or requirements, or in healthcare even, there would probably be in the US specific requirements, and you might not just be able to just use anything. So even though the Pico Pro might have more, I should say the Pico 4 Pro or the Pico 4 Enterprise might have more to offer than the Quest Pro right now in terms of management, it may not be something that American companies get into. And I could understand that. I could see where that's coming from, because clearly there's been lots of issues regarding Chinese companies and security and data security and such. So again, we're going to go back to this open system idea. And that open system idea, I keep on pointing to my computer, which is right here, but I've got the screen up. Now, the open system here, it says is business settings and enterprise SDK. So I'm imagining that means that there's an SDK that's specific to the enterprise OS. And that's pretty cool. I'm actually very curious what that's going to end up offering that developing for just the Pico 4 does not. No account needed. Obviously, that's something that Facebook Meta got a lot of pushback from with the Quest headsets, that you needed an account, which I think is, well, you don't need a Facebook account, but I think you still need an account. I believe on the Pro models, maybe with Facebook, you won't need an account. I'm not 100% sure, but that is obviously going to be, I think, a selling point for a lot of companies. If with this you don't need an account, but with the Quest Pro you do. And there's an offline mode, which obviously there's probably going to be some way of loading apps similar to side loading. You can load apps without an internet connection and use it in a kind of sandboxed environment where you don't have any internet access, which could be good in different scenarios, especially in things like banking or healthcare, where you might want to use the device for certain things, but you don't want to allow any internet connectivity for security reasons. I don't know what this means. Most popular comments pre-configured for developers. Okay, OpenXR, Unity, Unreal Engine. I think that's fairly straightforward. And here we go back to pricing. And like I said, it's €8.99, which is very competitive compared to the Quest Pro. So I think in European markets, I think the Quest Pro is definitely going to get a run for its money. And they're also talking about the other ones, the Pico Neo 3 Pro. And I don't know, this also says Pico Neo 3 Pro. And it's got a little logo next to it, so I don't really know the difference between that and that. Maybe that's without the controllers, because there's no controllers there, I guess. So that's fine, but that's their enterprise lineup. I don't know why people would choose the 3 over the 4 for enterprise usage. Maybe they'll be that much cheaper. No idea. So when is this going to be available? Again, not in the United States. It will be available for pre-order the first week of November. And one of the things they mentioned is that they should start shipping devices in early December. So they'll start shipping devices early December, and we can get our pre-orders in November. And we've got one company that I recognize in all this, and that's Ingram Micro. I've actually dealt with Ingram Micro before. In the US, they're actually fairly active, and you can buy, they're a hardware vendor and software vendor. You can get hardware and software, and they use it for various AV projects that I deal with. The others, I don't really know, but some of them are VR specific, like VR Expert. Video Solutions, obviously video related, so that's interesting. But it'll be interesting to see what the demand is. Obviously, the Pico 4 sold out. It's already sold out fairly quickly. Kind of kicked myself for not trying to get one. But it's it'll be interesting to see what kind of demand on the enterprise level. I do imagine there's going to be kind of slower adoption at the enterprise level, but I could be wrong, and I'd love to be wrong. I'd absolutely like to be wrong. So that's pretty much everything we learned. We didn't see any real demos at all of the Pico 4 Enterprise. So beyond just these slides and what they're telling us, as companies often do, they probably overpromise and underdeliver a little bit. I mean, I know that Meta had talked about features, and like what was it, the Infinite Office feature that took forever to get that, and even that's still very underwhelming. The Infinite Office. I mean, it's okay, but they're very underwhelming products in general. So it'll be interesting to see if some of these features take a while to roll out after the enterprise. It'll be interesting to see if they hit their target dates of November and December. Will all these chip shortages and stuff, which seem to be a little more alleviated, but will any of that affect things? It'll be curious to see supply versus demand on this. So there you go. I would be very compelled to get this over the Quest Pro as a developer and wanting to build things, only from the aspect that it offers a lot more for considerably less, for kind of like what, 50% less, maybe a third less, about a third to 50, a little more than a third less than the Quest Pro. But the only thing that's difficult for me, one, is having to wait, A, and B, the fact that the security issues aren't that much of a thing for me. I'm not too concerned about it because I don't really have any super sensitive data. I don't work on top secret projects or anything like that, so I'm not so worried about that. But the Quest Pro is coming out soonest, and I want to be able to start working on some AR and VR and MR mixed reality applications sooner than later. And there's a better, bigger library on the Quest Pro, let's just be honest. And I'd rather be doing my business right now in the United States. It's a little bit easier than trying to build things and sell them across the country. But if I had the opportunity, maybe at some point, perhaps I'd get it also. But I think right now the Quest Pro is more compelling, but there's still some things I'm really curious about. Let's see if we can find out what is the Quest Pro pass-through camera. Quest Pro pass-through camera. Megapixels. How many megapixels is it? Did they tell us? You'd think that they would tell us, but I have no idea. Let's see here. Onboard cameras. We know that there's 5K resolution. But what's something recent? This is on October 11th. So I don't know. I don't see if anything's going to tell me what the Quest Pro pass-through camera resolution is. So they definitely told us on the Pico 4 that it's 16 megapixels. Let's see if it says anything about. Okay, nothing about that resolution. Okay. See, it just says onboard cameras. It doesn't say anything else. I don't see what the pass-through. Let's look for pass-through. Nope, nothing for pass-through either. So I don't. Oh, pass-through. There we go. But it doesn't tell me. See, nothing that says what the actual resolution. This is funny. Why wouldn't Quest tell me what the number of megapixels are? I don't see anything here. I'm looking at October 11th. Let's see, camera, pass-through camera resolution. Anything you're looking for? Do I see it here anywhere? No, I don't see anything there. It's all talks about the display. Don't see anything that tells me what the pass-through resolution is. It says high resolution color pass-through camera. What is the resolution? Why can't you tell me? Yeah, I don't know. Each of them a color camera. Nah, I don't think that's right. It's saying like, because there's a single, I believe, if I'm correct, it's a single pass-through camera, not multiple, right? I believe there's one single pass-through camera on the Quest Pro, and they're doing some kind of magic with that to overlay. But they're still using black and white cameras for the tracking, or infrared, black and white, whatever, and then they're overlaying the depth data from that with the color overlaid to give it kind of like a 3D appearance, which is similar to what the Pico 4 is doing, except the Pico 4 apparently does not look very, from what I've heard, does not look very 3D, but I think they'll probably be able to do some magic with that as time moves on. So there you go. We don't know the Quest Pro color pass-through resolution. It was very grainy though, and I wish I had some ability to compare it to what it looks like on the with the Pico 4, but I'm not able to. But I'll be able to tell you soon. I think I'll be able. Well, I may not be able to tell you what the actual resolution is, and without a Pico 4, I won't be able to actually visually compare them. What I can say about the Quest Pro is there's literally no screen door effect that I could see. Some people had said they could see some. I really didn't notice any. Granted, I wasn't really looking for it, but I didn't see it. And there was no God rays that I saw either. So there are some cool things, and it looks like the Pico 4 and Pico 4 Pro will be able to do some cool things. Face tracking is really cool to me too. I like the idea of being able to more naturally interact. I'm looking forward to be able to experiment and try out some applications that utilize that. So there you go. That is the Pico 4 Pro. That's all I know about it. And yeah, so we'll have to see. As soon as I have access to the Quest Pro, I'll do a video as quickly as I can. I try to keep these videos simple because I can get them out quicker. I'm not doing a lot of editing. You'll notice I just brought the television to sit it right here beside me, kind of presentation style, because it's a lot easier than going through and editing this. I'm going to be able to basically send this out in one cut without any editing. I know that might seem lazy, but in order to get you the latest news, and I don't have time to do all this editing, I also have another YouTube channel, which is DIY Boat Life. I live on a boat. I'm here on the boat right now. You can actually see if you like. I can show you. Take a little look outdoors. There's a sailboat right next to me. So we're out here. It's a little rainy today. It's gonna be a little bit nicer the rest of the week. But this is in fact where I live. We're moving down to Maryland in a week. So that should be pretty exciting. Or not in a week. We're moving down to Maryland next spring. Somewhere around Bethesda, DC, somewhere on the Chesapeake Bay at least anyway. So that's it. This was my kind of just my 2 cents of the Pico 4 Pro and how it compares to the Quest Pro, and I'm excited to show you first hands-on when I have the Quest Pro in my hands. I'll do a video and that'll be exciting. So there you go. This is Will Steele with DIY Boat Life, and I'll see you later. I'm all in VR. Are you?